This story collection was published as Chen Nan Jiu Shi in 1960s. It's 11 years from the 1949 Great Retreat from mainland China, and translated into English in 1992. Okay, and the story collection differentiates itself from some of the more antique communist works of fiction at that time, with an innocent, romantic, and witty tone. Okay, I think this is very important because you have to know why Lin Hai-yin used a different point of view to narrate the story. We have first-person narration or third-person narration of stories, right? Third-person narration tends to be more objective, and first-person narration tends to be more intimate, personal. Right? So the narrator is not only a narrator, it's also a main character of the story, or at least a friend of the main character, or someone who is closely related to the main character in the story. Right? Okay. So the reason why Lin Hai-yin chose a six-year-old girl as the narrator of the story is the reason why she wants to make this story more innocent, romantic, and witty, right? From the perspective of this little girl. Okay, so we can say that this is both a story collection and a rite of passage autobiographical novel. That is a Bildungsroman, a novel of growing up, the story collection is constituted by 5 stories. First one is Hui'an Hostel, the first story we are going to read today. And the second one is Let Us Go and See the Sea. And the third story is Lan Yi Niang, the second story we are going to read today. And the Donkey Rose, and Papa's flowers have fallen, and I was no longer a child. Okay, so from this, just from the title of this, the last story, we know that this is the Bildungsroman, because after father's death, the narrator Yingzi, she has to be more responsible for the family. She has to help her mother with raising up many kids, right? Okay, and through the whole process of the story develops, you know that the narrator herself is growing up from the story. For example, from the first and second story, we know that the narrator, the character Yingzi, she has a more confusing or a more mistaken character because she usually took things at its surface level. For example, in Hui'an Hostel, at the end of the story, we are not quite sure about the story itself is true or not. Okay, and in the second story, let us go and see the sea. In this story, Yingzi tried to make friends with a thief because we know that she's very easily to be deceived. And from the third story, we see a more mature Yingzi, because in the middle part of the story, we see Yingzi as the observer of the family crisis, because somehow Lan Yinyang and her father get along very well, right? So she has to make a very important decision to save the family. Okay, and from the fourth story, Donkey Rose, we see the narrator Yingzi as the observer of a very traumatic, a very sad story, because we know the nanny of the family, Song Ma, she's a nanny from the countryside, to Lin's family, to help Lin's family raise the kids, right? But herself has had two children, but they all died because of her husband's irresponsibility. Okay, so this is a story view from a 6-year-old, not 6-year-old, not from a 10-year-old girl's eyes to see the difference, the great difference between urban life and the country life. Okay, because the nanny Song Ma was from countryside. Okay, and in the last story we see the narrator became an adult in the family. Okay, so that's the way the story goes. We have two different memories of Peking. One is the Taiwan's memories of Peking. That is after the 1949 Great Retreat. This is according to the census data from 1956. After the 1949 Great Retreat, more than 1,200,000 mainlanders relocated themselves from China to Taiwan. Among them, there were almost 8,000 from Peking. Okay, so during their extended stay in Taiwan from 1949 to 1987, the year martial law was lifted, they were not allowed to visit relatives or to return hometowns legally. Okay, so the story, Memories of Peking, is written to remind people their ways of life in the past. So I'm going to focus on the depictions of the Peking's way of life. Of course, for the normal people, the lower classes in the Peking in Peking. One of the reasons why Memories of Peking has become popular in the classical might be closely related to its evocation effect of arousing the reader's feeling of nostalgia. What is nostalgia? This is something very important in the development of the 20th century fiction. What is nostalgia? Nostalgia is a feeling or the memories of the things past. Okay, so when we look back to the past events of our life, no matter they are good things or bad things, we tend to read them as more romantic way, as a part of our life. That is the reason why these people in Taiwan, the mainlanders in Taiwan, they look back to their past ways in mainland China, and they think that the Memories of Peking is the people in Memories of Peking has a very similar way, like their past life in mainland China. Okay, so this is one of the reasons why it became classical in Taiwan. Okay, and we have another version of Memories of Peking in China, because in 1982, this story collection was made into a feature film by director Wu Yigong. Okay, he used I think 2 or 3 stories, not all the stories in the movie. He used 2 or 3 stories in the movie to make this film, make this story collection as a film. So why it became a best-selling film? This is a very interesting. This is a very interesting thing, because we know that Taiwan, there is a very long-standing political antagonism between Taiwan and mainland China. I think we all know that. And it's not allowed to use the materials to make movies, the materials from Taiwan to make movie. I think this is the case before the 1980s, because we know that from 1966 to 1976, we have the Great Cultural Revolution. This Great Cultural Revolution was initiated by, this is a political struggle initiated by President Chairman Mao Zedong, right? And after the death of Mao Zedong, this Cultural Revolution crumbled down. And after that, China started to make a change. Okay, so one of the change that made this film possible is this kind of political antagonism is started to fade away. So there's more and more political bans being lifted. According, of course, this is one of the example of this kind of lift. So we have to put this question, the question why it became the best-selling film, put this question into the social-political background of the 1980s in the post-Mao and the post-Cultural Revolution in mainland China. As we know that after 1980s, the ruler of mainland China is Deng Xiaoping, and Deng Xiaoping started to develop the economy of China. So many of the places in China start to renovate their cities. Okay, of course, including Beijing. So the old Beijing started to fade away after this kind of a political change. So as the old Beijing was beginning to vanish away into history, it was fairly easy to imagine that what the moviegoers wanted to grasp in the film was the old Beijing before urban renovation changed the city once for all. So when you go to Beijing right now, it's very hard for you to figure out what it's like in the old days of Beijing. Okay, so this movie made based on the basis of the story collection is a very important film in the development of China's modern cinema.